searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise and treasures that fade are never enough. Then you came along.
Congrats on.
And put me back together. And every desire is now satisfied here in your love. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing, nothing is better than you. I know it's true. I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen them all, and you still call me friend. 'Cause the God of the mountain is the God of the valley, and there's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing, no, better than you, Lord. There's nothing, nothing is better than you. I know, I know. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing, nothing is better than you. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. Yes, you are. You're the only one who can. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing, no, better than you, Lord. There's nothing, no, nothing is better than you. Oh, yeah, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing I know better than you, Lord. There's nothing, no, nothing is better than you. You turn my graves, you turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies.
Come on, just continue to worship him tonight. I am weary from the waves crashing over every day. God of mercy, please come rescue me. I am longing for your voice, gentle whisper in the noise. Father, tell me everything's all right. Oh, your power and your presence break strongholds. King of heaven, when you speak, mountains move. I believe there will be breakthrough, yeah. I know you alone can take my scars, piece by piece restore my heart. Take what's broken and make it whole again. Oh, your power, your presence break strongholds. King of heaven, when you speak, mountains move. I believe there will be breakthrough, yeah. Oh, there will be breakthrough, yeah. Shake the mountains, break the walls apart, open the heavens. Almighty God, you are overcomer, defender of my heart. It's who you are. And by your power, the oceans open wide. Your fire falls down, heaven and earth collide. King Jesus, forever by my side. Shake the mountain, yeah. Shake the mountains, break the walls apart, open the heavens. Almighty God, you are overcomer, defender of my heart. By your power, and by your power, the oceans open wide. Your fire falls down, heaven and earth collide. King Jesus, forever by my side. In your power, in your presence, break strongholds. King of heaven, when you speak, mountains move. I believe there will be breakthrough in your power, your presence break strongholds. King of heaven, when you speak, mountains move. I believe there will be breakthrough, yeah. Oh, there will be breakthrough in your name, we sing. There will be breakthrough.
God, tonight we believe that there can be breakthrough no matter where we are. No matter what situation we're walking through, God, we know that You have the power to break down walls, God, to break down barriers, to come into any situation, God, to unite us as a body, just to bring your name, your truth, God, your light into this world. We thank you for that tonight, God. We just ask that you would open our hearts and minds for what you have for us to receive tonight. We thank you, God, that we can worship you. We thank you for all that you are, the amazing God that you are, all that you've done in our lives, God. And just, we believe in faith tonight that we're going to be different than when we started. And we just thank you for that, God. I thank you for all that you are and all that you're going to do tonight through us. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, welcome to our midweek live here at CLC Dayton. So glad you guys are here joining us. Thank you for joining us for our acoustic worship set. It's always awesome to do that with you guys, even though we can't be together. And we're excited that soon we will be together. So hope you guys are looking forward to that as well. While we're still here online, go ahead and throw your favorite animal emoji in the chat. I think that's a good one, right? There's lots of them. So choose your best one and throw that in the chat. Tell us what's up. Tell us where you're watching from. And thank you guys again for joining us here online and joining us for CLC Midweek. And here is Pastor Sam. Thanks, guys.
All right. Good Wednesday, everybody. We're glad you're with us. Haven't been with you for a couple of weeks, and so it's good to be back. And glad that you're here as well. I'm not sure what the emojis are saying online. I don't really use animal emojis much. But anyways, tonight is a really important night for us. I want to share with you what our reopen plan is at this point. And would you say work in process? All right, it's a work in process. It is set and somewhat fluid. And I've debated, do I give you the why, the rationale, biblically and practically first, and then give you the reopen plan, or vice versa? And I think what I'm going to do is walk through the reopening plan. And we will be posting this online as well. There's a slide we'll put up, church reopening updates. You can visit clcdayton.com. You can follow us on social media. You can also do emails and texts and phone messages, or call the comeback hotline at 937-750-7223. All those are ways for you to be aware and informed with us. And so I want to talk to you about the plan that we have that's going to be rolling out and the timing to that. And then I'm going to give you some theological perspective behind it, some practical perspective behind it. And what I find is that, not surprisingly, we find ourselves on a continuum of reactions. And on one end of the continuum, and you might be there, you might be saying, open now. Let me see how I made that little face. It worked out pretty good. All right, that's like a do it now. All right, and if that's you, go ahead and say it loud. Do it now. All right. Then we have the other end that says not. It's like, what are you thinking? All right. And I have heard from both ends of that continuum, now and not. I've had people say, I want to come back now. I've had people say, I want to come back last week. I've had people say, I don't care when you open up, I am not coming back for a long time, and everywhere in between. And so there are biblical perspectives I want to bring to this to help us see how we landed where we did. And but I'm going to go ahead and tell you the plan. Initially, our staff leadership team crafted this basic plan, this kind of a format. And I shared it with the board in our April board meeting. And we were initially suggesting that we roll this plan out in the month of May, so that by the last weekend of May coming up, we'd pretty much be done, back, and have our graduation honoring that weekend. And then, as I've said before, if you took away the board, I'd quit tomorrow, because they brought great wisdom. We had a long conversation. And by the time we were done, it was the consensus that, you know what, unrolling this plan in May is just too soon. And so we hit the pause button, we refined it, we tweaked it, and then a week ago Monday, so a week before the holiday, I brought a version, I brought this plan to our board and said, okay, we're suggesting that we go ahead and begin this rollout starting the first week of June and finish it up at the end of June, first part of July. This was before the president said anything about churches being essential. That was on last Friday. This is obviously a schedule before our governor would say, thumbs up, I like that plan. But we felt like it was prudent and it was a good approach. We still believe this is a good approach, speaking for our leadership team on staff, and the board has approved this. And so one thing we liked about it too was rolling it out in June, we'd have at least a couple of weeks to kind of see how things were happening across the state. As businesses are starting to open, restaurants are starting to open, although I notice they're still pretty sheepish. Not a whole lot of, well, some are, but some aren't yet, so going back to the stores and restaurants. So we thought, okay, if there's a backlash, if there's a flare-up of the pandemic or whatever, we could respond to that as we roll this out. So barring any unforeseen significant changes culturally, here's where we're going. We've been at church at home for 12 weeks. This weekend will be the 12th weekend. Pat yourself on the back. Give yourself a round of applause. Great job. You've been very faithful in attendance. Although we do notice, as we do anyway on staff, when the weather's nicer, attendance tends to dip. So we're not disappointed when it rains on a Sunday or a Saturday night, just being honest. And giving's been good. Thank you so much for your giving. And it's really been an unprecedented time. There has been nothing like this in my lifetime, over 60 years of living, where you have a worldwide pandemic that has been so pervasive and so responded to across the world. And with it, we've had to have a lot of flexibility. You've had to be flexible, we've had to be flexible, and lots of innovation. We made the call early on, you know what, we talk about that the building is not the church, we're the church, and we want you to be with us. We want it to be as interactive in us as possible. So the entire time, we have done all of our services live. So I'm with you right now, and it is Wednesday night, and it is on my Apple Watch 7:19, okay? And we do it on Saturday, Saturday, twice on Sunday. I'm the only one of my peers I know that's doing this. Most of my peers pre-record it, hit play, and that's the way it goes. But we felt like it would enhance the experience just a little bit more to be live and to have chat going and whatnot. So thank you for being with us. Our teams have also launched several online opportunities, both our youth ministry, our kids ministry, discipleship. And really looking back, we've already said, you know, these are things that we needed to have launched, and we know there'll be permanent changes for us. The first week that this happened, we had a meeting with our entire staff, and I said, my prayers will look back on the pandemic of 2020 and be thankful for the things that came out of it, the ways that it changed us, the innovations that it prompted, necessities of mother invention. And so we're looking at this as a huge interruption, yes, a huge imposition, but we're not going to just go back to business as usual. We're going to go to how have we learned and grown from this, and what does it look like in a new season. So I'm thankful for that, looking for Romans 8:28, if you will. And in preparing for a comeback, we're trying to balance gathering together and safety. I'll talk a little more about that and give some scriptural perspectives on both ends of that continuum behind me. We've talked to several churches. We tend to be the check with them on when they're opening. It's humorous to me how many of my pastors of the larger churches in town will text me in the wintertime, is CLC open? We're kind of the snow standard, I guess. And you know how reluctant we are to close with bad weather. And so we've talked with the pastors, and when are you going back? And most of the larger churches we compare ourselves to are going back around the time frame we are. A church or two might have gone back last weekend or this weekend. Most are looking at a June target date in varied ways. And the reason why we compare ourselves to larger churches in the area is because we're birds of a feather. We have lots of logistics. Just to pull off a weekend service requires over 250 volunteers. All those man hours, scores of staff time to orchestrate that, to make it feel like when you walk in, we all just showed up. We didn't all just show up. It's quite a process. And so those other churches also understand logistics and planning and that sort of thing. And we've also looked at federal, state guidelines and the CDC. We've put this plan together, and as I said, it is fluid, it is tentative, but we feel good about it. And so it'll be different for a while as we come back, but the difference is going to be a good difference. And so I want you to listen to how we're rolling this out, and I assure you, as you listen to this, some of you are going to be over here, some of you are going to be over here, and some of you like was it the Three Bears? It was too hot, too cold, it was just right, okay? I hope most will be just right, and I think there will. But at Christian Life Center, we're talking about today as a staff, we lead a very diverse congregation in just about every way. And so I am also used to pastoring, speaking to, leading, making decisions for people that are on both ends of almost every continuum. And so we're hoping to hit that sweet spot when it comes to our reentry process. We're going to practice some basic safety protocols. We ask you to join with us in that. Social distancing in the lobby and in the sanctuary. And of course, as you leave, use just consideration in that regard. Giving, we're going to try to make things as touchless as we possibly can for the indefinite future. Giving, you're already good at giving online or mailing your gift in. We also have purchased additional giving boxes that'll be at the doors. I can see them now from where I'm standing, so you can give as you leave. So we'll not be passing the offering buckets for that. We'll have an offering time, but not be passing these. It's a touchless offering. We'll not be having bulletins or handouts in the indefinite future. You'll have all that information online, so those of you who don't want us to kill too many trees, we'll be saving a ton of trees by not printing bulletins. The bathrooms and high-touch areas are going to be sanitized after each service. Our team already does an amazing job. They'll be doing even more. And if you want to help us volunteer for that, seriously, we can use some help doing cleaning in between services. So if you want us back, put your elbow grease where your mouth is and help us out. We're going to need some help with that. Door holders to decrease touching doorknobs. Our hospitality and our kids' life team will be wearing masks. So our ushers and greeters, our cafe folks, our kids workers, youth workers will initially be wearing masks out of consideration for others. And I'll talk a little more about that. So some of you are already relieved, some of you are already frustrated. Stay tuned, we've thought that through. When it comes to masks in general, if you're an attender, they're not required. It's your personal choice. And I want to raise a very important question about wearing masks. I wore this one until I got on the platform. Our staff rule has been, oh, you hear better, that when you're on the platform, you don't have to wear it for obvious reasons. And so I wore this one just to hack all my Bengal fan friends off. So, but anyways, but I'll have a word about wearing masks. We're asking for no handshaking, hugging, or personal touching. And we actually started that, you notice, a nurse in the congregation sent me an email probably in January saying, Pastor Stan, with all the flu, it wasn't even coronavirus, with all the flu season going on, might have been December, can we back off on the handshaking and whatnot and just maybe fist bump or whatever? And, we thought that was a good idea just to be prudent. And so we've already backed away from that, so we're going to stay away from that for the indefinite future. We're also, for the initial opening, we're going to restrict attendance in the auditorium to about 500 people. So here's something that's important for you to know. The first 500 people are going to have a seat in this room, all right? It might be a few over under, but that's so you're going to want to break your habit if you come 10, 20 minutes late and want to get in after worship, because this room will probably be at capacity. And so we do have overflow in the West Auditorium and also in the Connection Center around TVs, but this will be the prime space. You want to be here early for that. And when it comes to those of you who feel in a vulnerable state, but you want to come to church, you heard a lot about age, and the older a person gets, they become part of that at-risk population, or maybe you have a pre-existing health condition. We're setting aside room 107, 8, and 9, reserved for our at-risk room. That room, there'll be large screens. You can watch the service live with other CLCers in the room. We will have masks required. You bring your mask for that room. So we have a place for you if you don't quite feel comfortable in the large auditorium or the West Auditorium or in the lobby. So that'll be up as well. And then let's see. We will include our online presence that we've been doing for the past many weeks. And kudos to our team. They've done an amazing job. And Pastor Ryan and the team had the foresight earlier in this year, before a pandemic was even a word that we talked about, to upgrade our tech equipment. And we've given you a great experience on that. And that will continue both on weekends and on Wednesdays. You can still be part of this online, all right? So those are just basic safety issues. And again, you're reacting all over the continuum right now to this, and I'll come back to that. Let's talk calendar. The first thing we're going to be doing here in the room live that you have an opportunity to participate in is that June 3rd, which would be next Wednesday, we're going to have our first Wednesday prayer and worship service. It's the first Wednesday of the month. We're going to be having that, and we're going to open this room up to the first 500 people who come. Now, we're going to ask you, though, to register for that. So say registration required. All right? And some of you are already reacting to registration required. You love it, you hate it, okay? but we're going to do that this time only. And I probably shouldn't say this, but 500 is normally way more than enough room for people who come to the prayer service, but maybe this one will be different because you have been here for a while. So you can register for that by going to clcdayton.com and be part of that a week from tonight. Okay, so join us for that. And we're going to use that service. We always use it to pray for the God-sized vision. And so we're going to be praying for our month of opening. Okay, that God really blesses that. He draws us together, draws us back, gives us wisdom, gives us favor, gives us safety. And so it's a great way to start everything by having a time of prayer. Okay, so with that thought, let me tell you that what's going to happen next. That weekend, June 6th and 7th, we're going to have a limited attendance here on property. We're basically inviting weekend volunteers to join us for the service. So if you're an usher, a greeter, if you're a parking lot attendant, if you're a safety team, if you are a tech worker, if you are a musician, instrumentalist, those positions, kids worker and youth workers, we're having them come on the weekend for a couple of reasons. Number one, we don't want to open things up after being closed down so long and disregard safety or have it really clunky and seem awkward. So it's really kind of a dress rehearsal for us that first weekend of June. And so we'll be having a training time also for them while they're here in the auditorium. And then they'll break out into specific training times for each area that needs that. And then we'll be ready, and learn as much as we can, ready for a full opening on weekends. And that same weekend, June 6th and 7th, because that morning on June 7th, we'll be doing training for youth workers. That evening, June 7th at 6:30, senior high is back open in the Student Life Center. We'll still ask for social distancing and precautions, all right, but it will be open and running that June 7th, all right? And then the next weekend, June 13th and 14th, the second weekend of June, say second weekend of June, all right? That weekend in June is when we'll have worship services Saturday night, Sunday at 9, Sunday at 10:45. We will have it limited to the first 500 people in the auditorium. And basically we got some apps so we can count people coming in to this part of the building. And so once we hit 500, you'll be redirected to either the West Auditorium or the lobby area around the TVs. So you can still be with other CLCers, but it'll be different. And so again, that's a great incentive to come early, all right? And on 13th and 14th, it is going to be so exciting. We want you to participate in the Kids Life Open House. We've been remodeling all the kids area, 35,000 square feet plus during this time. It's going to have a great facelift, lots of new features, and you're going to want to see it. There's a big orange bash that weekend. And so join us for that. And then that next weekend is when Kids Life classes will be in place. So middle school will launch in the Student Life Center on June 14th at 10:45. Social distancing and all those things still observed. So the weekend that there's an open house in the Ministry Center for Kids, Student Life Center has middle schoolers that second service. Got that? So first week of June, it's just weekend volunteers getting trained and oriented and practice. Second weekend of June, everyone's welcome to come, 500 maximum capacity, so you might want to come on Saturday night or come a different service. And then that second weekend of June, 13, 14, middle school will also start meeting at 10:45, and the open house happens. Third weekend of June, 2021, Father's Day weekend, say Father's Day weekend. Again, it's 500 per service. That's about a fourth of our auditorium. What we're going to do, and we've been in here counting seats, having people in here, counting it out. Every other row will be seating, and then in the row you're in, we're asking for 2 to 3 seats between you and the next party. So that will give us an adequate social distance, comfortable social distance between each other. And then we plan Kids Life launches on Father's Day, and then we'll plan to stay that way through July 4th and 5th weekend. And then the following weekend, we hope we will have learned everything we need to learn about the building and people coming and going and ushers and greeters and parking lot and cafe and all that. In July, we'll open up the building on weekends to adult Sunday school classes, which meet on Sunday. And some of you might be going, well, I want to be in Sunday school now, okay? I know you do. We want you there. But please give us a little grace. This might just be our staff, but on our staff, this is the first pandemic any of us have had to deal with. Maybe you got experience elsewhere. We don't. So the whole idea of shutting down, and it's not like, I have a family member who has a church of 80 people. They can decide to open and open tomorrow. We are like 22, 25 times that size, and the logistics are huge. So please bear with us. We want to open up a nice, safe environment, a convenient environment. And so give us the month of June to figure out services in here, to figure out adding kids to that, adding youth to that. And then we get to July, after the July 4th weekend, because most people, we don't have Sunday school on the 4th anyway for adults. After the July 4th weekend, 11 and 12, that's when we'll open up for adults. And at that time, we hope that we'll not have to have any restrictions at all, that there are no relapses in our society, our community, and our economy, and we can go ahead and just, okay, forget counting 500. If you want to wear a mask, fine, but we'll be back to no restrictions. That's July 11 and 12, maybe, all right? We say that because we're holding this loosely. When it comes to midweeks, we're going to continue being on live to you, so if you want to watch us from home on Wednesdays, you can. And then we're also going to be having this available after next Wednesday. You can come to the midweek service. We'll have the first 500 people. That shouldn't be a problem based on Wednesday night attendance, even now online. And so we'll do that through the month of June for adults. It'll be in here and online. Through the month of July, it'll be in here and online. And then in August, after the prayer service, we'll begin Wednesday night midweek classes for adults. And there's a practical side to that as well. To be honest, we talked to Pastor Stewart and his team. Wednesday night adult classes this summer is pedaling uphill. We compete with all kinds of schedules and with summertime and vacations, and it is really difficult to build any momentum in the summer. So we're going to keep this going for June and July. You can watch it online or be here. And then in August, we'll kick off, as we kind of enter the ministry year, kick off adult classes. As far as adult discipleship, home groups, if you haven't been meeting, you can meet immediately in your homes. Please be mindful of all the social distancing considerations. Also midweeks, I think I mentioned that Student Life midweek will start June 10th, the things that they do for teenagers. And Kids Life midweek starts June 17th. It's the Wednesday after the open house. Again, all this you can get online. You're going to be getting emails and a mailer about this as well. So let me say that in closing, before I jump to the theological and rationale behind what you've just heard, why we made this plan, to be gracious in all things, offer grace, and give it and receive it. Be respectful. Some people will choose to wear a mask and some won't. Here's one of my biggest fears. Satan is good at what he does, and Dirk reminded us in a staff meeting today. He said, you always say that Satan tries to do the 3 Ds. He tries to distract us. He tries to discourage us. He tries to divide us. And the coronavirus, the pandemic, certainly distracted everyone from their normal agendas, from Washington, D.C. to Dayton, Ohio. It gets discouraging when it continues and the economy starts to tank. You lose your job. You know a friend who's sick, whatever. And then we divide. Our nation is more polarized over this pandemic, not less. We came into it politically polarized, and now it's just gotten worse. You wouldn't think it'd be possible. It is. And I know that I was talking recently that whenever a new person hires on staff, I'm not in all the hiring decisions. I'm only in a handful. And so a person could literally get hired on here at CLC in a different position, and I don't even know they work here. So I started several years ago, because I won't see them until, a staff meeting once a month. So I started several years ago, whenever somebody hires on, I want to have a new staff orientation meeting with me. I spend a half an hour, and one of the things I tell them about, it's a spiritual job, make sure you pray, and I said, make sure that you do not allow yourself as a staff member to be a tool of division in CLC and our staff. And I tell them, Satan's not going to stop CLC out there in the community. The more opposition Satan brings against the church, the stronger the church has tended to be throughout history. But how will he destroy and stop CLC? It'll be by trying to divide us from within, trying to cause division on our staff, division at a board level, division at a congregational level. And if he can pit us against each other, what have I said? And I was reminded of that. It's nice to have your words thrown back at you. I think Dirk said, what do you always say? Satan doesn't fear a big church. He fears a united church. We came into this as a united congregation. We prayerfully did the very best we could, and I believe loads of great decisions were made. Sure, we didn't do everything perfectly. We did a great job, as good as we could. And we're going to come back to this as a united church, and we are not going to divide over this. All right? So, with that said, when someone wears a mask or not, one of my biggest fears is that we're going to treat this as a mark of spirituality or not. And, all right, forget it's a Browns mask. That's hard to even think it's spiritual at all, okay? But we're going to, if we're not careful on this end, say, oh, you're wearing a mask. Where's your faith? All right? And on this end, people could be wearing a mask out of consideration for others because they heard one of the best ways I can protect you from the virus is to wear a mask. And they're going to think, how rude, that person's supposed to be a Christian. They're not wearing a mask. Let's suspend judgment on each other on whether we decide to wear a mask or not. Let's be responsible with social distancing. I don't like social distancing. I don't like masks. I am not a real fearful kind of person when it comes to things like this. I'll be transparent. I told the staff when this started, I'm not afraid of the coronavirus. Chances are if I get the coronavirus, I expect I'm going to get real sick for a couple weeks and I'll start feeling better. Now, it could be worse, but probably not. The staff will tell you, I am complying with guidelines and regulations and suggestions from those in authority in our society as best that I can, and I think as best as we can, even though it's hard for me to get real worried about it. Some of you, for instance, in general, are real hand sanitizer fans. I love shaking hands. I shake hundreds of hands on a regular basis, and I will maybe hand sanitize once in the middle and once at the end. Okay, I'm not a real germ kind of guy, all right? But I realize that I need to be sensitive to what research says. And again, there's a whole lot of up in the air about what's accurate, what's not. And what's good health practice, and just out of consideration to others. And so let me say this. To those of you that feel like, I'm not wearing a mask, that's fine, and I don't have a hard time shaking hands, be careful. Still act like everybody wants to social distance, because here's what will happen. The person who feels like, hey, I got faith, or I don't care, and I'm done with this, and it's all just a plot, and so I'm going to shake hands, and you walk to people. The person who really is uncomfortable and maybe even offended, they won't say anything when you say, we're going to shake hands anyway, right? Oh, yeah. They're just going to walk away going, I wish they hadn't done that. And so let's just assume that we're all going to go into this gently and that we represent Christ to our church, but also people are coming to our church that aren't believers, and they're going to want to see how respectful we are of other people, of the guidelines that have been set. And so with that said, let me go to now some of the, how in the world did you decide that schedule? Okay, so basically, next Wednesday, 500 to pray. First weekend of June is weekend volunteers only to kind of practice. The second weekend, there's open house for kids ministry. Everybody can come, 500 per service, social distancing. Third weekend, Father's Day, and kids are open, youth are open before that, and then on through the 2nd of July. I covered it all? All right. So how do you land this? Let's look at some scripture verses. And the first that you have heard me quote many times, and I love having it quoted back to me now, is Hebrews 10, 23 to 25. Before we read it, let me say that this verse is a huge concern of mine and other pastors. Put the coronavirus aside, the pandemic aside. This verse in Christian practice in the church is tanking. The average American Christian does not believe this like the average Christian did when I was growing up in church. I don't know how old your kids are. When I was your kids' age, the church believed this verse, practiced this verse, lived this verse at least twice as much as we do now. Here's the verse. Let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how to stimulate, how to motivate one another to love and good deeds, not forsaking our own assembling together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. not forsaking the assembling together of ourselves. I said early in this coronavirus, the word church means gathering together. Man, what a slam it is, what a jolt it is to gathering. I told the staff, we do gathering together for a living, and now we're going to have to minister to people all over the community and not have them here. It's taken some real creativity to figure out how to do that. But when I grew up, the church gathered together every Sunday morning. We came back later and had church every Sunday night. And then we came back every Wednesday night. We were together, assembling together, encouraging each other, motivating each other, learning together, praying together. Now, sociologists tell us that the average regular church attender in the United States attends less than once or twice a month. Less than twice a month, period. Wednesdays, Sundays combined. So this already is in the fade, and then you have that admonishment, and you have this pandemic that says, no, you're not allowed to attend. So certainly, what we tried to do then, as I said earlier, was we want to make you being there as much like you being here as possible. That's why, for the most part, all of our services are on stage. We've broken up Wednesday night some. We did some in the First Step room. We still do worship up here. We do it live so that you know that I'm here with you, and it is now 7:44 p.m., okay? So we are right with you, and it's real time. And so we've tried to make that connection. We can't wait till you're back. I'll be the first one to tell you I can't wait to have people. We had, the kids had the Orange Aid Parade today, and we had kids workers across the front of the building, and they were giving out orange drinks and snacks and treats and whatnot as parents drove their kids by. It was the funnest thing just to see people and tell kids, I can't wait to see you. So it's going to be good to be back. There is some sentiment, then let's just come back now. Forget all the restrictions, let's just go. And before I go there, let me write some names on here. Governor DeWine. How's that feel? Dr. Acton, is it with a C? Dr. Fauci. President Trump. CDC. WHO? World Health Organization. Chances are you have an emotional response to these. Agree or disagree? You can say it out loud, some of your, whatever. And then you have the question of safety. When is it safe? We want to flatten the spread, right? And then what about the economy? And on and on. We've seen horror stories from around the world of things that have happened in different countries that were catastrophic. We've seen some mini horror stories in the States with hot spots, especially in New York and Southern California. And we've seen places where it's hardly been a concern at all across the nation, such a large country. And so you have a visceral reaction to these people. And I want to tell you that try to keep your politics at bay. Our nation is politically divided. I was talking to somebody, well, Dr. Acton, she's pro-abortion. What right does she have to tell us what to do? I don't care for a lot of her positions. I don't even agree with a lot of the decisions that have been handed down. I was glad the Supreme Court was pushing back on some of that authority. But she is an authority. Joyce and I really like her oncology doctor. Outstanding, a great guy. I have no idea where he stands on pro-life. I didn't hold him to that litmus test. Well, I'm not going to listen to you about Joyce's oncology unless I agree with your pro-life stance. And so let's be consistent in what we hold people to when we decide if we're going to respect them or not. We should respect them regardless, and whether we're going to listen to them or not. Let's watch we don't get too divisive in our responses. I felt like the governor, I've been surprised that a governor can have as much authority that Governor DeWine has taken, but it's the first pandemic he's ever been through. I have been surprised at President Trump and Dr. Fauci and the interaction there. I like a lot of what's happened. I question a lot of what's happened, really across the board. But it's not my place to determine right or wrong. It is to some degree. But let me share with you, let's jump to 1 Peter chapter 2. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 13 is a passage that we as American Christians are not real good at. Submit yourselves for the Lord's sake to every human institution, whether to a king as one in authority, or to governors as sent by him for the punishment of evildoers and the praise of those who do right. For such is the will of God, that by doing right you may silence the ignorance of foolish men. Act as free men and do not use your freedom as a covering for evil, but use it as bondslaves of God. Honor all people, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the king, and might I suggest also the governor. Well, but they're not a believer. Nor was Caesar. This was written to people living under the domination of one of the most immorally bankrupt people in history, the Roman Empire. And yet here are Christian leaders saying, honor authority, honor the king, honor the governor, honor their appointees, honor what is coming down from them. That's Peter. Let's jump to Paul, another New Testament thinker. In Romans chapter 13, verse 1, he says, every person is to be in subjection to the governing authorities, unless, of course, you go to evangelical megachurch. Every person is subject to governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those which exist are established by God. Therefore, whoever resists authority has opposed the ordinance of God, and they who have opposed will receive condemnation upon themselves. For rulers are not a cause for fear for good behavior, but for evil. Do you want to have no fear of authority? Do what is good, and you have praise from the same. So what are you saying? If they say we can't go to church, we don't go to church? Well, it depends. I believe that if you look at the history of the church and the way this verse applies and the way it was adhered to by believers, as long as it is not biblically immoral what they are restricting, we submit and we comply. I heard a conversation from a young guy in our church, a solid believer, and he said, I'm a gun guy. And he said, but if it got to the point where our government decided guns were illegal, as a Christian, I would have to surrender my firearms because the Bible doesn't say I have the right to bear arms. The Constitution does, but not the Bible. And I would submit to that authority. I have said on Wednesday nights, and I believe on weekends, that if the restriction on churches were we are going to tell churches not to meet because you're a church for spiritual reasons, I'd be the first one to call for civil disobedience. But it's not that. And so we have to look at how do we honor those who are in authority and the kings and the governors to honor God. And in 2 Corinthians chapter 8, the Apostle Paul made a statement that I believe applies in this arena as well. It became a theme for me when I was the ministry administrator here over our fiduciary concerns, computers and budgets and finances. And he said in verse 20, taking precautions so no one will discredit us in our administration of this generous gift. For we have regard for what's honorable, and not only in the sight of the Lord, but also in the sight of men. Now, most of you sitting out there do not have to make decisions as the lead pastor of Christian Life Center, or as their staff, or their board. There's only a couple dozen people that fit in that group. And so you don't have to make as broad of a decision as we do, and what is honorable in the sight of the Lord and also in the sight of men. Not just people who think like you do and vote like you do and feel like you do, but what is honorable in the sight of men. Our world, our nation has been through a pandemic shutdown, some justified, some not. By the way, hindsight is always 20/20. And so what decision would you make? Because we want to be honorable in our administration of this generous gift. We have the trust of about 4,000 people that consider this their church home. We want to do what's right and consider the safety and well-being of every person who walks in the doors, whether they are 10 or 90, whether they are, I'm not coming back, or let me back now, whatever age, whatever demographic, whatever persuasion. we have regard for the administration of that, for the social distancing of that, for the right protocols, for the right consideration, so that everyone has a safe experience. And I've heard people, question, is our church making decisions from prayer and letting the Lord lead the way, or by outside interference? Are we influenced by media and government? And I would say, well, in some ways, biblically, I just read to you verses that would say we are not to disregard government and those in authority. Now, has the whole process been politicized? Sure. Are there political agendas running underneath this? Yes. But we still have a responsibility to say, okay, what are the basic protocols, what's being asked and required, and how can we do what's honorable in the sight of God and the sight of men, including men in authority over us? And I heard one person say, how many plagues have there been throughout history, and how has the church handled them in the past? I looked a little bit. I know the Black Plague that hit Europe killed I think half the population. And many churches, the congregations were devastated, and there were no pastors left to pastor them. Didn't go well. This is the first plague of my lifetime of this magnitude, called a worldwide pandemic. And so even if you feel like from the get-go we've blown it, I trust that you'll give us grace. If you've been here long enough to know they try to pray and discern, do the right thing, lead the right way. We're going to give them grace. I think they totally blew it. We still love them. We're going to be united together. I can assure you, on the contrary, as our team, we've been praying, and we have, our workload has just multiplied. I don't feel like it's been a shutdown in my personal life because I'm busier than I've ever been. We have daily staff meetings, updates. We're debating, arguing back and forth. How does this look? What I'm praying, bringing insights. So it's been quite a process. But one thought is that it couldn't be more unwelcoming to go to church and find the door locked because they met the social distancing capacity. Well, for people that think like me, that if I'm on that end of the continuum and they've met their capacity, I'm going to be upset. But for people who are somewhere here, and they show up and they go, oh, they're really doing what they can for proper safety for their people, for the community, that really matters. And we've talked about, in fact, I think in the first staff meeting we had, I talked about, the Bible does say they'll drink deadly things and won't harm them, pick up serpents and won't kill them, whatever. And I tend to lean on don't worry about it, let's just do it. But I put that at bay and realized we have a responsibility. And there are some who would say it is a lack of faith. God is going to protect the church, and we should come back and forget all restrictions, just come back as you are. Because I do this for a calling and a living, I am very cautious whenever I say, God said. In fact, I don't play that real often because I leave room for a Stan Tharp error. But if God said we should come back and not be afraid, He's going to protect us, forget all cautions, you better be very, very sure that God told you that, because there are at least a couple of examples, modern day, in the coronavirus where that wasn't the case. If you look in Scripture, there are times that God leveled plagues and He exempted His people. There are times He leveled plagues and His people suffered from it. And you can look up your own information online, but one, up close and personal, an Assembly of God pastor in Greers Ferry, Arkansas, said, we are staying open, we're not going to worry about the pandemic. And right before it hit, they had a kids event on March 5th through 8th, and God's going to protect us. The pastor came down with the coronavirus, got deathly ill, and over 30 people from their church did. And he said this, our singular act of stubborn independence can have far-reaching effects on someone else's life. Respect and compassion for the people around us must dominate our self-discipline. Paul talked about that, didn't he, in Romans, where we learn to respect the convictions of other people that are different from us so as to stay united and not divide. Some of the convictions didn't seem as strong in faith. Well, I'm going to honor your conviction. I'm going to respect that, and vice versa. And so while you might not care at all about hand sanitizer or masks or social distancing or whatever, when we come here, we're going to be united and courteous and considerate, and we're going to respect both ends of the continuum that are here because God didn't tell us otherwise. Another pastor, it's unfortunate, in Virginia, Pastor Gerald O. Glenn, he was 66 years old, not too much older than me, the bishop and founder of New Deliverance Evangelistic Church in Chesterfield, Virginia, a Pentecostal church. On March 22nd, the bishop was quoted by local media outlets as saying this: "I firmly believe that God is larger than this dreaded virus." And he said that he would keep preaching unless I'm in jail or in the hospital. Those are admirable words of faith. God is bigger than this. He's going to protect us. We're not going to cower in fear and run from this. But it's sad to say that on April 11th, Gerald Glenn died because of the coronavirus. I think he's going to be in heaven. I think the other pastor almost went there earlier than he was supposed to. But I have not gotten a word from God that says churches, specifically that Christian Life Centers, should disregard all cautions, and God is bigger than that, and we're just going to show up and do it. Do I think anybody's going to get the coronavirus? Highly unlikely. But God forbid, I don't want to be the pastor that disregard all the cautions. And a child, an older person. I was watching a guy who was 63 years old, very healthy, a doctor, came down with it and almost died. A good friend of mine, Greg Mundis, the head of World Missions for the Assemblies of God, almost died, was in a coma for weeks from catching the coronavirus from someone in Europe. And so let's be careful how quickly we spiritualize. Let's be careful how quickly we judge people at this end or at this end. Let's be careful how quickly we disregard the verses of Scripture that tell us to honor those who are in authority over us. We have a right to vote, and yes, we absolutely do. And yes, I'm concerned at the direction that a lot of the things have gone during the pandemic, but we also have to trust God in that. And as we come back together, we're going to come back together as a group of people that give each other grace, that need grace. So for the first several weeks, you might be saying, I can't believe if they're wearing a mask, give me a cup of coffee or holding the door open. Just go with it. You might be glad they are. Just go with it. All right? I can't believe we're not shaking hands. That's all right. It's okay. And let's just give each other grace. Give us grace as your team, as your staff. We're learning. Like I say, it's the first pandemic we've ever been through. I hope it's the last. I told the staff, I think I might have mentioned in a service, that I could have gone through my entire career. We're looking at retirement, like 4 years out or so. I could have gone through my entire career and not had a pandemic and not felt cheated. But it's here. And so I want to thank you for praying with us, praying for us. If you want to register for next week's prayer service, do so online and be in this room. That'll be a great attendance for a first Wednesday prayer service, 500. We've hardly ever topped that. And it'll be a great way for us to pray about our reentry together and moving forward. Now, it's tentative from the standpoint that if something blows up in our community, disease-wise, then we'll have to reconsider it. But that's our tentative schedule. And so we're moving forward with that. I want to thank our board and our elders, our advisory team, and our leadership staff at CLC. We've got some great people, great men and women, and I'm thankful for you as a congregation and all that you have done to be part of us on this crazy journey. And I just heard from our youth guys today. We're down at New Hope planning a really exciting Plan B. It's going to be a Plan A missions outing there in our inner city. They said, man, we are stoked. God's doing so many great things. And so I'm excited to get back together. I'm excited to have you where you are. And you can register for next Wednesday. You can do that now, right, online. So you can go there, and there's information in the slide on how to do that. I think that is all, and I'm sorry to go off script, but am I closing or somebody else closing? I'm closing, okay. Sorry about that. So thanks, Pastor Ryan. He's down there giving me a thumbs up or not. So hopefully that answers your questions. If you want to toss some thoughts in the chat, please do that. We stay open for a while, and we'll record those. It might help us, again, refine the process, because when I make decisions, I have a pretty good sense of where we're going. I base it on data and prayer and intuition and feedback, interaction. And this whole plan has not just been me, it's been collectively several people praying, talking, tweaking, information, insight, discernment, all that. If you have thoughts even now that you heard, hey, have you thought about what about? Feel free to send that to us, because it's a work in process, okay? So let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for your goodness to us. We thank you for bring us through this pandemic and the way you have blessed and kept this congregation. And so I pray, Lord, that you will guide us now as we move forward into the future, that you will bless Christian Life Center in amazing ways when we come back over the next several weeks. Let it be your blessing added to the plan. Let it be a great reentry, that we have the best summer we've ever had, that leads us to a fall that just causes us to shake our heads and say, wow, we know you're a good God, and we thank you for all you've done, who you are for us and to us. And so continue to use us, God, to be an accurate representation of what Christianity is meant to be when it's lived out among a community of believers. That's who we want to be at CLC. We ask it all in your name. Amen. God bless you. Thanks so much.